I was sitting in the lawyer's office holding an envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a check for 200 million naira. 200 million. The lawyer, Mr. Tunde, was still talking about bank procedures, tax deductions, and investment opportunities, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat and the echo of what that old beggar had said to me just 3 days ago under the Maryland Bridge. Give me everything you have, Chioma. Trust me, and see what God will do. I thought he was just another crazy homeless man spouting religious nonsense to get money from desperate people. I had absolutely no idea he was Alhaji Musa Abdul Hai, one of the richest men in northern Nigeria. A billionaire who owned oil wells, real estate across West Africa, and telecommunications companies. And I definitely had no idea that giving him my last 5,000 naira, my very last money in the entire world, would completely shatter my life as I knew it and rebuild it into something I couldn't have dreamed of even in my wildest imagination.
Don't wait for 5,000 nairas. And he won't wait for 5,000 nairas until 5,000 nairos want. Nairo Pamulon.
Let me start from the beginning, from the day everything fell apart before it came back together. Chioma, I'm really sorry, but we have to let you go. My boss, Mr. Boxman, Adeyemi, wouldn't even look at me when he said it. He just kept staring at his computer screen like it was the most fascinating thing in the world, like my entire life wasn't crumbling right in front of him. Sir, I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? My performance reviews have always been excellent. I've never missed a deadline. I come in early, I stay late. It's not about performance, Chioma. It's not personal. He finally looked up, but his eyes were cold. The company is downsizing. We're cutting costs across all departments. We have to let some people go, and unfortunately, you're one of them. But, sir, I've been here for 3 years. 3 years of hard work, and we appreciate everything you've done. But the decision has been made. HR will process your final payment. I'm sorry. That word was supposed to make me feel better, I guess. It didn't. It felt like a slap. I walked out of that office in complete shock. My legs felt like jelly. My head was spinning. 3 years at that marketing firm. 3 years of sacrificing my social life, my health, my everything for a company that just tossed me aside like I was nothing. My best friend Ngozi was waiting for me outside the building. She'd been working in the sales department and had somehow survived the cuts. So, what happened? Did you get the promotion? She was smiling, hopeful. I couldn't even speak. I just handed her the termination letter. Her face fell immediately. Oh my God, no. I'm so sorry. She hugged me tight. This is so unfair. You're one of the best workers here. Apparently not good enough, I said, my voice flat. Don't say that. This economy is just terrible. Companies are cutting people everywhere. It's not your fault. She squeezed my shoulders. Look, let's go get drinks. My treat. You need it. I can't afford drinks, Ngozi. I said my treat. Come on. We ended up at a small beer parlor in Akesia. Nosy ordered 2 bottles of Smirnoff Ice, even though I told her I didn't feel like drinking. But she insisted, and honestly, I needed something to numb the pain. So what's your plan? She asked, after we'd been sitting quietly for a while. I shrugged. Look for another job, I guess. What else can I do in this Lagos? With this economy? Ngozi shook her head. Babe, I'm not trying to discourage you, but jobs are not exactly falling from the sky right now. My cousin has been searching for 8 months. 8 months, and she has a master's degree. I knew she was right. Everywhere you looked, people were getting laid off. Companies were closing down. The naira was falling. Prices were going up. It was like the whole country was collapsing. I have some savings, I said quietly, more to convince myself than her. Not much, but enough to survive for maybe 2 months if I'm really careful. By then, something will come up. It has to. Nosy reached across the table and held my hand. You're going to be okay, Chi. You're smart, you're hardworking, you're dedicated. Something good will happen. I believe that. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Nothing good happened. I applied to 47 different companies. 47. I sent my CV everywhere. Marketing firms, advertising agencies, small businesses, big corporations. I even applied to positions I was overqualified for, just hoping someone would give me a chance. Some companies never responded. Some sent automated rejection emails. Some told me I was overqualified and they couldn't afford me. Some told me I didn't have enough experience in their specific industry. One hiring manager actually suggested I could get the job if I was willing to be friendly with him. I walked out of that interview so angry I was shaking. Meanwhile, my savings were disappearing like water in the desert. First, I stopped going out completely. Then, I stopped buying meat. Then, I sold my small TV. Then, my laptop. Then, my good shoes and clothes. I was down to eating Gary twice a day and bread when I could afford it. My landlord, Mr. Johnson, was getting more aggressive with his threats every week. Chioma, I'm running a business here, not a charity. You pay me or you pack out. My phone was about to be disconnected because I couldn't pay the bill. My mother kept calling from the village, asking me to send money for one thing or another, and I didn't have the heart to tell her I was broke. So I lied. I told her work was busy, I'd send something next week, the network was bad, anything to avoid the truth. I was 28 years old, and my entire life was falling apart piece by piece. One Tuesday morning exactly, 2 months after losing my job, I woke up and decided to check my bank account balance. I'd been avoiding it because I knew it would be depressing, but I needed to know exactly where I stood. I opened the mobile app with shaking hands. Account balance. Birth 5. 847-005,000. 847- That was it. That was every single kobo I had left in this world. I sat on my thin mattress and started crying. Not gentle tears. Full, ugly, body-shaking sobs. The kind of crying where you can't catch your breath and your chest hurts, and you start wondering if maybe dying would be easier than continuing to live like this. God, I prayed through my tears. I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening. I've tried everything. I've been faithful. I've been good. I pray. I go to church. I help people when I can. So why? Why is this happening to me? Why do you feel so far away? The room was silent. No answer came. Just the sound of my neighbor's generator and distant Lagos traffic. I wiped my face with my wrapper, got up, and got dressed in my last decent outfit, a faded blue dress that used to be nice but now looked worn and tired, just like me. I decided to go to the job center one more time. Maybe, just maybe, something new had been posted. Maybe today would be different. I was walking through Maryland, mentally preparing myself for another day of disappointment when I saw him. The old beggar was sitting under the bridge, near the bus stop where Danfo buses and Okadas were constantly fighting for space. He looked ancient, maybe 70 or even older, with a long gray beard that reached his chest and clothes that were so torn and dirty they looked like they'd survived a war. He had a small plastic cup in front of him with a few coins scattered inside, maybe 50 naira total. His feet were bare and covered in dust. His hands were wrinkled and shaking slightly. But what really caught my attention were his eyes. They weren't the cloudy, unfocused eyes you usually see on beggars who are drunk or on drugs. No, his eyes were clear, sharp, alert. He was looking at everyone who passed with this strange, intense focus, like he was studying them, analyzing them, seeing something the rest of us couldn't see. Most people just walked past without even glancing at him. Some tossed coins into his cup without breaking their stride or making eye contact. One well-dressed woman in high heels actually spat on the ground near him and muttered something about lazy people who should get jobs instead of begging. I was about to walk past too. I had my own problems, right? When he suddenly spoke. Young woman. His voice was surprisingly strong for someone who looked so frail. I stopped and turned around. Yes, you look troubled. Very troubled. I laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Is it that obvious? Come, sit with me for a moment. He patted the dirty ground next to him. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to keep walking. I didn't have time for this. I needed to get to the job center. I needed to find work. I needed to figure out how to survive. But something about his voice, something about the way he looked at me with those knowing eyes, made me sit down on the dusty ground next to him. What's troubling you, my daughter? He asked gently. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because I was desperate to talk to someone, anyone. Maybe because he was a stranger, and strangers are sometimes easier to confide in than friends. Maybe because I'd been holding everything inside for so long that it just needed to come out. But I told him everything. I told him about losing my job 2 months ago, about sending out dozens of applications and getting nothing back, about selling everything I owned just to pay rent and buy food, about lying to my mother because I was too ashamed to admit I was failing, about eating Gary and bread every day because I couldn't afford anything else, about feeling like God had forgotten I existed. He listened without interrupting, didn't nod sympathetically or make pitying sounds like most people do. He just listened with complete attention, like my words actually mattered. When I finally finished talking, he was quiet for a long time. Then he asked a question that surprised me. How much money do you have right now? I frowned. Why do you want to know that? Just tell me. How much? About 5,000 naira, I said slowly. Maybe a bit more. Why? He looked directly into my eyes. Give it to me. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. What? Give me all your money, every kobo, right now. I laughed again, but this time it was shocked, almost angry. Uncle, are you out of your mind? I just told you that's all I have. Every single naira I have in this world. If I give it to you, I'll have nothing. Zero. I won't be able to eat. I won't be able to pay my landlord. I'll have nothing. I know. Then why in God's name would I give it to you? His expression didn't change. He kept looking at me with those intense, knowing eyes, because God is testing you through me. Right now, at this very moment, you're being tested. And how you respond to this test will determine everything that happens next in your life. I stood up quickly, brushing dust off my dress. Uncle, I'm sorry you're in this situation. I really am. But I can't help you. I can barely help myself. Thank you for listening, but I need to go. I started walking away, my heart pounding with anger and confusion. Who did this old man think he was? Testing me? I was the one being tested by life, not him. Chioma! I froze mid-step. I turned around very slowly. What did you just call me? Chioma, he repeated calmly. That's your name, isn't it? My mouth went dry. I didn't tell you my name. How do you know my name? He smiled slightly. I know many things about you, Chioma. I know you're 8 years old. I know your mother's name is Patience, and she lives in Enugu State. I know you were the best student in your secondary school, but you couldn't go to university immediately because your father died of a heart attack and there was no money. I know you worked as a housemaid for 2 years to save money for school. I know. Stop! My voice came out as almost a shout. Who are you? How do you know these things? Did someone send you? Is this some kind of scam? I'm just an old man sitting under a bridge, asking for help, he said quietly. But I'm also the answer to the prayer you prayed this morning. My legs felt weak. What prayer? You asked God why this was happening to you. You asked why he felt so far away. You asked if he'd forgotten you. He paused. This is your answer, Chioma. I'm your answer. Give me everything you have. Trust me, even though it makes no sense. Trust me, even though you're afraid. Give me everything and see what God will do. I stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, people rushing past me, traffic honking, Lagos chaos swirling around us, and I felt like time had stopped. This was insane. Completely, totally insane. This old man was either a prophet sent by God, or a very clever con artist, or someone with mental illness who just happened to guess some lucky details about my life. But something deep inside me, something I can't explain even now, was pulling me toward him. I thought about my Sunday school teacher back in the village, Sister Margaret, who used to say, "Faith is doing what makes no sense because God said so. Faith is giving when you have nothing left to give. Faith is trusting when everything looks impossible." My hands were shaking as I reached into my handbag. I pulled out all the cash I had, 5,000 naira exactly. I'd already spent the 847 naira on transport and bread earlier in the week. I stood there holding that money, staring at it. 5,000 naira. It was nothing to rich people, but to me right now, it was everything. It was food for the next week. It was hope that maybe I could hold off my landlord for a few more days. It was survival. If I give you this, I said, my voice barely a whisper, I'll have nothing. I won't eat tomorrow. My landlord will throw me out. I'll have no money for transport, no money for anything. Nothing. I know you aren't. And you're telling me to give it to you anyway? Yes. Why should I believe you? Because faith isn't about knowing, he said softly. Faith is about trusting when you don't know. I took a very deep breath, closed my eyes, and made a decision that I knew would either save my life or completely destroy it. I opened my eyes, stepped forward, and placed all 5,000 naira into his cup. He picked up the money slowly, counted it carefully, and looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Thank you, Chioma. God bless you for your obedience. Now what? I asked, and I couldn't stop my voice from breaking. What happens now? What am I supposed to do? Now you go home and wait. 3 days. In exactly 3 days, everything in your life will change. I promise you. 3 days? I felt panic rising in my chest. Uncle, I don't have 3 dogs. Trust me, he said with such calm confidence that it almost made me angry. Just trust me for 3 more days. I stood there for another moment, looking at the strange old man who had just taken everything I had in the world. Then I turned and walked away. And as I walked, I started to cry again. Because I was absolutely certain I'd just made the stupidest, most foolish decision of my entire life. That night was one of the worst nights of my life. I had nothing to eat, not even Gary. Not even bread. I drank water from my tap and lay on my mattress, staring at the ceiling, my stomach growling, my mind racing. God, I whispered into the darkness, I really, really hope that man was sent by you. Because if he wasn't, if he was just a crazy person or a con artist, then I've just signed my own death sentence. I've just given away my last chance at survival. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that old man's face, his knowing eyes, his calm smile, The way he said my name. The next morning, I woke up to aggressive banging on my door that shook the whole room. My landlord, Mr. Johnson. Chioma, open this door right now. I opened it slowly, my heart sinking. He was standing there with two massive men who looked like they could break me in half without trying. They were probably area boys he'd hired to intimidate me. Johnson, please, I can explain. Explain what? His face was red with anger. You've owed me rent for 2 months. 2 months, Chioma. I've been patient. I've been understanding. But enough is enough. You pay me today, or you pack your things and get out of my house. Today. Sir, I just need a few more days. Just a few. A few more days for what? To continue lying to me? To continue wasting my time? He gestured to the two big men. Pack her things. Throw everything outside. No, please. I was begging now, desperation making my voice high and shaky. Please, Mr. Johnson, just 3 more days. Something is coming. I promise something is. Something like what? A miracle? He laughed cruelly. This is Lagos, Chioma, not church. This is real life. Money or get out. The two men started moving toward my room. And that's exactly when we all heard it, the sound of a car horn. Not just any car horn, an expensive-sounding horn. We all turned. A sleek black Mercedes-Benz, the kind with tinted windows and chrome that gleamed even in the dusty Lagos morning light, was parked right in front of our compound, in Ajigunle. A car like that in Ajigunle was like seeing a unicorn. The back door opened, and a man stepped out. He was young, maybe in his mid-30s, wearing an expensive-looking gray suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my old salary. He had the kind of confident, polished appearance that screamed money and education and success. Excuse me, he said, his voice smooth and professional. I'm looking for Miss Chioma Okafor. Everyone went silent. Mr. Johnson looked at me with sudden suspicion. The two big men stopped moving. Even the neighbors who'd started gathering to watch the drama paused. I'm Chioma, I said quietly. The man smiled and walked toward me with his hand extended. Miss Okafor, my name is Tunde Bakare. I'm a lawyer representing Alhaji Musa Abdullahi. He handed me a business card with gold lettering. The Alhaji would like to see you immediately. It's very important. Would you please come with me? I stared at the card, then at him, then at the Mercedes, my brain completely unable to process what was happening. I don't understand. Who is Alhaji Musa Abdullahi? Why does he want to see me? Mr. Tunde's smile widened slightly. The man you gave money to yesterday, under the bridge in Maryland. My heart stopped. The beggar? I whispered. He's not a beggar, Miss Okafor. Tunde's voice was gentle but firm. He's one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria, and he'd like to thank you personally for what you did. The world tilted. My landlord's mouth literally fell open. The big men looked confused. The neighbors started whispering frantically. This doesn't make sense. He looked like, I know. That's the point. Please, Miss Okafor, come with me. The Alhaji is waiting. I looked down at myself, my faded dress, my worn slippers, my unbrushed hair. I'm not dressed for. You're perfect as you are, please. In a complete daze, I followed him to the car. The driver opened the door for me. Actually opened the door, and I slid into leather seats so soft I felt like I was sitting on a cloud. As we pulled away, I looked back and saw Mr. Johnson still standing there, frozen, his mouth still open in shock. The drive to Victoria Island felt like traveling to another planet. Mr. Tunde sat in the front passenger seat and explained everything as we drove through Lagos traffic that somehow parted for our Mercedes like the Red Sea. The Alhaji, he began, is a very successful businessman. Oil, real estate, telecommunications, construction. He's built an empire over the past 40 years, but 5 years ago his beloved wife passed away from cancer. It devastated him. I listened silently, still trying to process what was happening. After her death, he fell into a deep depression, started questioning everything, the meaning of life, the nature of people. whether wealth had corrupted him and everyone around him. He wondered if anyone in this world would help another person without expecting something in return. Mr. Della. Tunde turned slightly to look at me, so he started an experiment. Once every month, for the past 5 years, he disguises himself as a homeless beggar. He sits in different locations around Lagos. He watches people. He observes how they treat him. Sometimes he asks for money. Sometimes he asks for food. Sometimes he just watches. My mouth was dry. How many people has he tested? Thousands. Literally thousands. And in 5 years, do you know how many people gave him something without expecting anything back? Hundreds. Hundreds of people tossed coins into his cup, but they never looked at his face, never asked his name, never treated him like a human being, just like a problem to throw money at so they could feel good about themselves. He paused. Some people ignored him completely. Many insulted him, called him lazy, told him to get a job, said he was a disgrace. One woman poured hot water near where he was sitting. Another man kicked his cup and scattered his coins. I felt sick. But you, Mr. Tunde continued, his voice getting emotional, you did something nobody else did in 5 years. What? You sat with him. You talked to him like a human being. And when he asked for your money, when he asked for all of your money, everything you had, you gave it to him. Tears were starting to roll down my face. The Alhaji has money he could never spend in 10 lifetimes. But yesterday, when you gave him your last 5,000 naira, he cried. Actually cried, because it meant something. Because you gave when you had nothing to gain. Because you sacrificed when you were the one who needed help. The car pulled up to massive gates that slowly opened automatically. Miss Okafor, Mr. Zokafor, Tunde said quietly, you've passed a test that thousands of people failed, and the Alhaji wants to reward you properly. We drove through gardens that looked like something from a movie, past fountains and sculptures, and stopped in front of a mansion so big it made my head spin. This couldn't be real. This had to be a dream, but it was real. Inside, everything was white marble and gold fixtures and artwork that probably cost more than entire buildings. A smiling woman in a uniform led me through hallways that seemed to go on forever, until we reached a sitting room that was bigger than the entire compound where I lived. And there, sitting in a large cushioned chair like a king on a throne, was the old beggar from yesterday. Except he wasn't a beggar anymore. He was clean. His beard was neatly trimmed and white like snow. He was wearing a pristine white kaftan with gold embroidery that probably cost more than I'd earn in a year. His feet, which yesterday were bare and dusty, were now in leather slippers that gleamed, but his eyes were exactly the same, sharp, knowing, kind. Kioma, he said warmly, standing up as I entered. My daughter. Come. My legs were shaking as I walked toward him. He took both my hands in his. Please, sit. I sat on the edge of the sofa, afraid I might dirty it with my worn clothes. First, he said, settling back into his chair, I want to apologize for deceiving you, for making you think I was just a poor homeless man. You don't need to apologize. I don't understand what's happening, but let me explain. He leaned forward. When my wife died, I lost myself. I had all this money, all this success, but I felt empty. I started wondering if I knew anything real about people anymore. Everyone who talked to me wanted something. Everyone who smiled at me had an agenda. I didn't know who my real friends were. His eyes got misty, so I started my test. I wanted to see if kindness still existed in this world, if anyone would help someone when there was nothing to gain from it, when it would actually cost them something. He gestured around the room. Do you know how many people walked past me in 5 years? Thousands. Some gave coins, most ignored me, many were cruel. But you, his voice cracked. You sat with me, you listened to my story, even though you had your own problems, and when I asked for everything you had, you gave it. I don't know why I did it, I admitted. It was stupid, it was illogical, but something told me to trust you. That wasn't stupidity, my daughter. That was faith. That was obedience. That was a good heart. He wiped his eyes. My wife, may Allah grant her paradise, she always told me, The truest measure of a person is what they do when nobody is watching and there's nothing to gain. You passed that test, Chioma, the only person in 5 years to pass it completely. He stood up and walked to a large desk in the corner, opened a drawer, and pulled out an envelope. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. Chioma Okafor, he said formally, turning back to me, I want to give you 3 things today. He held up one finger. First, a job. You will be the director of my charitable foundation. We provide food, shelter, medical care, and education to the poor across Nigeria. You will oversee all of it. Your salary will be 2 million naira per month, with full benefits, a car, and housing allowance. I couldn't breathe. 2 million naira per month. I used to make 150,000. He held up a second finger. Second. I will personally pay off all your debts, your rent, your phone bill, everything you owe. You will start fresh, clean slate. Tears were pouring down my face now. He held up a third finger. Third. This. He handed me the envelope. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. Inside was a check. I looked at the number, looked again, counted the zeros. 200 million naira. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. My vision went blurry. I can't accept this. It's too much. I just gave you 5,000 naira. I don't deserve. Stop. His voice was firm but loving. You gave me everything when you had nothing. 5,000 or 5 million, when it's all you have, it's everything. And that kind of heart, that kind of faith, deserves to be rewarded. I was sobbing now. Ugly, loud, uncontrollable sobbing. He knelt in front of me. This billionaire, this man who could buy anything in the world, knelt in front of me and took my hands again. Chioma, listen to me carefully. God saw you. God saw your suffering. God saw your sacrifice. And this is His reward. But I need you to promise me something. Anything, I choked out. Promise me you'll never forget this feeling. This moment when you had nothing and God gave you everything. When you're blessed, bless others the same way. Give when it hurts. Give when it doesn't make sense. Give everything. That's how we change the world. I promise, I whispered. I promise. I'm sitting in my new apartment in Lekki. Yes, Lekki. The same area where I used to sell pure water in traffic, dreaming about what it would be like to live here. The apartment has 3 bedrooms. The bathroom has a bathtub, a real bathtub. The kitchen has a refrigerator that actually works and doesn't make noise. It still doesn't feel real. The story went viral within hours. Girl gives last money to billionaire disguised as beggar, rewarded with 200 million naira. Some people said it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever heard. Others said it was fake, a publicity stunt. Some said I was lucky. Others said I was smart for taking a gamble. But I know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a gamble. It wasn't intelligence. It was faith. Stupid, illogical, doesn't make any sense faith. My mother called me crying when I sent her 5 million naira. My landlord nearly had a heart attack when I paid him a full year's rent in advance. Not for me, but for my old room, on the condition that he give it to someone who needs it and can't afford to pay. Nosy screamed so loud when I told her the full story that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. This is insane. This is like something from a Nollywood movie. You gave a beggar your last money and he turned out to be a billionaire? Chi, you're the luckiest person in Nigeria, but I don't feel lucky. I feel blessed. There's a difference. Luck is random. Blessings are purposeful. I started working at the Abdullahi Foundation last week. We feed 5,000 people every day across Lagos. We pay school fees for 300 orphans. We're building homes for widows. We provide medical care for the elderly. And every single time I approve a donation, every time I hand someone food or money or help, I remember sitting under that bridge with nothing. I remember the old man's eyes. I remember handing over my last 5,000 naira with shaking hands. I remember feeling like I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And I remember learning that sometimes, when you give everything to God, He gives you everything back, pressed down, shaken together, running over, just like He promised. Yesterday, I went back to that bridge in Maryland. I sat in the exact same spot where Alhaji Musa had sat 3 weeks ago. I wore simple clothes. I had a cup in front of me. Hundreds of people walked past. Some threw coins without looking. Some ignored me. Some insulted me. Then a young man stopped. He looked tired, worn out. His clothes were faded but clean. He stared at me for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out 2,000 naya. "It's all I have today," he said quietly, "but you look like you need it more than I do." I could see in his eyes that he really didn't have more. He was giving me his last. I stood up and handed the money back to him. "Keep it, brother." He looked confused, but "You need it. You're signed." I pulled out my business card and 10,000 naira. "Come to this address tomorrow morning. We have a job for you, and bring this money to help you start fresh." His eyes filled with tears. Why would you? I don't understand." "Because you just passed a test you didn't know you were taking," I said softly. "Because people with hearts like yours deserve to be helped. Because someone did the same thing for me." I walked away, leaving him standing there in shock, and I smiled. Because I finally understood what Alhaji Musa had been doing all these years. He wasn't just testing people, he was looking for good hearts in a broken world, and when he found them, he changed their lives forever. Now it's my turn to do the same. Thank you for reading. Please like, subscribe, and share this story with everyone who needs to hear it. Remember, never underestimate the power of giving. You never know who's watching. You never know who's testing you. You never know when your greatest sacrifice will become your greatest blessing. But always, always give, even when it hurts, even when it's your last, even when it doesn't make sense. Because that's exactly when miracles happen. God bless you all.